HARK, we are here. It is time for another adventure into Star Wars Unlimited. This week was a lot busier than I thought it was going to be, and I really wish they would spread some of this stuff out. I know it's the holidays coming up. Hopefully we have enough content when it comes to making and putting out a video on either the 20th, which is the Wednesday before Christmas, or the 27th, which is the Wednesday after Christmas. And then with New Year's, that's a whole other different thing. Anyway, we'll figure it out. I might do deck techs or something for deck building ideas that I think are good. Anyway, we have a bunch of previews and we have a stream to go over and an article to go over. The stream and the article are going to be the same, so it'll have a lot of the same information pushed together, but there's a lot of good stuff out there. So let's get started with some of these previews. Our first preview comes by way of the Unlimited FFG Twitter account. Last couple of months we've had votes for single aspect previews, aggression, vigilance, cunning, command, that kind of stuff. But on Monday, they gave us the opportunity to vote for new double single aspect. You're going to understand what I mean when I say that here in just a second. This first one, though, whew, I know we just came off Cunning Month, but we've got the Cantina Bouncer here, which is a 5-cost Cunning ground unit. 3 power, 5 health, fringe, wish it was Underworld, but it's fringe. When played, you may return a non-leader unit to its owner's hand. It is an uncommon, number 202 out of 252, and SOR. For 2 extra resources, you can waylay a unit and put a 3/5 body on the field. That's all that needs to be said about this card. This is literally waylay plus a 2-cost body. You now have the ability to throw 6 waylays into your deck. This card's dope. This card's nuts. It's one of the best double single aspect cards that we've seen so far, and we've seen all of those ones that are named after each individual aspect. This card is great. It's fantastic. Cantina Bouncer. 3 of in every double cunning deck. Our next 2 previews come by way of the FFG live stream. I did not actually watch this live. I decided to take that day off because this past week I actually wasn't having a great week. But that doesn't matter. You don't care. You only care about the previews, so here we go. First one is Avenger Hunting Star Destroyer. 9-cost Vigilance Villainy space unit. 8 power, 8 health, Imperial Vehicle Capital Ship. When played and on attack, an opponent chooses a non-leader unit they control, defeat that unit. This is a legendary. It is number 40 out of 252 in SOR, and this is our big Vigilance Star Destroyer. Now, if you're part of the Discord or you've seen any of the other stuff on social media, we saw the French version of this as a big card that was on the side and didn't have the full thing, but now we have the full English text for this, and this is a banger of a Star Destroyer. When plays, your opponent defeats a unit, and every time it attacks, your opponent defeats a unit. So, let's say you're running Admiral Piet, you get to ambush this into play, use the when played effect to defeat, and then on the attack also do the defeat. You can get 2 defeats for about 11 cost worth of units over 2 rounds, or even 1 round if you just have 11 resources. This is a great card, especially for Vigilance, because Vigilance Villainy, because Vigilance is about defeating units. And there's a leader we're going to see later on that's all about defeating units, and Avenger's going to help you get that job done. Avenger, Devastator from Command, other things, Vanquish, Takedown, and Count Dooku, all very important defeat this thing style of effects for Vigilance. And Avenger, even if it's just a 1 or a 2 of, fits right into Vigilance Villainy. Next, we can't let those dirty imps get all of the bonuses here and all of the cool cards, so this next card is a Rebel. This is Red 3, Unstoppable, 3-cost Aggression Heroism space unit, 2 power, 3 health, Rebel Vehicle Fighter, Raid 1, so it gets +1/+0 while attacking. Each other friendly heroism unit gains Raid 1, so it also gets +1/+0 on attacking. It's a rare, number 144 out of 252, and SOR. Biggs Darklighter here to pilot his X-Wing into the trench run. Sadly, we all know that he is defeated, destroyed, goned as part of the story of A New Hope. Sorry for the 70-year spoiler or whatever you want to say it is. It's not 70, it's like 50, 60 maybe. Time. Great card here. This fits right into Sabine Aggression, or Sabine Command, or Sabine Cunning, or Sabine Vigilance. It's because she's already got the aggression covered. But this also helps The Luke aggression base decks and the Leia aggression base decks get that extra push of power in by giving the other units raid. If you can get this onto the board and let it stick and get a couple of other attacks out with your heroism units, you can get that extra damage that a lot of other strategies are looking for when it comes to being aggressive in aggression or out of aggression. This is slotting right into my own Sabine deck. I have to make some changes to it at a later date. There's still more cards that need to appear, but in terms of a space package for Sabine specifically, or anything that's willing to allow more aggression units in space, Green Squadron A-Wing, Red 3, and Wing Leader are going to be a nice, tight 9-card space package that's going to allow you to do a lot of damage, get a lot of support, and just base race your opponent into oblivion. And I am very excited to see this in action. Next, we have 2 cards from Late Night Gaming, a gaming YouTube channel for Star Wars Unlimited. They also do Twitch streams. Link to their video for this below. You can also check their Twitch stream somewhere within those links. But these 2 cards are very interesting. We have 1 upgrade and 1 unit, so let's look at the upgrade first. This upgrade here is called Academy Training. It is a 2-cost command upgrade. It gives you +2/+2, so +2 power, +2 health. It's a learned upgrade here for trait. It is number 120 out of 252 and is a common in SOR. This is a very basic thing. Much like Tactical Advantage, you're just giving your character +2/+2. This happens to cost a little bit more, but it also lasts a lot longer, at least until the unit's defeated. It's a decent enough card. This is actually a fantastic limited card. You're going to see a lot of those in these. We've talked about them before. We're going to continue to talk about them as other cards come out. But this is basically a 2-cost, give something 2/2. It's like Snapshot Reflexes or Smuggling Compartment, where mainly you can say it's a 1-cost experience token, but at least this will give you 2 experience tokens for 2 costs, and other cards will give you other effects. This is actually pretty cool, directly from Rebels. If you're familiar with the content, you know what it is. And it's Academy Training. We have seen a Cunning Star Destroyer, 2 Command Star Destroyers, and a Vigilance Star Destroyer. We just need an Aggression Star Destroyer in order to be able to complete the package of Star Destroyers in set 1. This is not a Star Destroyer. This is a fantastic card. This is a really cool vehicle. I like it a lot. It comes from one of my favorite Star Wars video games, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Not a Star Destroyer. However, it is called Ruthless Raider. It is a 6-cost aggression villainy space unit. It has 4 power, 6 health. It is an Imperial vehicle and capital ship. When played and when defeated, you can deal 2 damage to an enemy base and 2 damage to an enemy unit. It is an uncommon. It is number 134 out of 252 in SOR. Ruthless Raider here is actually very similar to Gladiator Star Destroyer in that it's a good 6-cost slot into a deck that does something that deck wants to do. Command wants to give your stuff Sentinel and protect your things to be able to allow your units to do more damage. Ruthless Raider here just wants to deal the damage. So when it drops, you get to deal 2 damage to the enemy base, furthering the base race, and 2 damage to an enemy unit, which can either pop a shield, weaken a unit, take another unit off the board, all kinds of different things that you can do. But then when this is defeated, it's also dealing damage on the way out to your opponent's base and one of their units if they have a unit on the board. Notably, this is not limited to space units or ground units, so it can be any unit, and you can use it to soften up targets or prepare things to be taken down, so on and so forth. Excellent little ship here. It's good, it's great even, but it's not going to be as effective because it is such a chunk cost. It is a 6 cost, which is, if you're trying to do not necessarily aggression as an aspect, but aggro as a strategy, it might be a little too cost prohibitive for that. But if you're able to slot this into, say, aggression vigilance, because you want that extra damage and you're going for the control aggression style, then this works perfectly. So I think this is going to see a lot of play. I don't know exactly where I'm going to slot it into my decks personally, but we might see in the future. Our next preview comes by way, and I apologize because I'm totally going to butcher this, but I believe it's El Valle del Jedi over on YouTube. Link in the description below. And this is a neat little card that they got to preview, so let's check it out. This is a Scout Bike Pursuer. It is a 2-cost Vigilance Villainy ground unit. 1 power, 4 health, Imperial Trooper. It has grit, so for each damage you get +1/+0. It is a common, number 32 out of 252 in SOR. The first words that I thought when I saw this were, it's cute. It does work decently with the Grand Inquisitor. It does work decently with Krennic. It doesn't really further the goal of either deck of being able to do a bunch of damage to the opponent. Sure, if you can get this down to survive at 1 health, it's going to deal 5 damage to whatever it attacks or defends against. But much like some of the other grit units, it just seems easily removable or easily mitigated by dealing with it in any manner possible. Now, if you throw Resilient on this, the 1-cost Vigilance upgrade that gives +3 health, or Entrenched on it, it could work and could do some work. But you're spending resources on something that's already low cost, that I think the primary goal of this card is to be a draft filler if you're looking for extra things in Vigilance or Villainy to be able to throw into your deck, or a sealed filler, so on and so forth. And I don't think that this card is going to see much play. There's a couple of decks that I've seen out there that are slotting this into the trooper category, trooper aspect, trooper strategy, if you will. But even then, I'm not sure that this is exactly worth it. But for 2 cost, it's not really much to lose. It is a good round 1 play, since you'll have the 2 resources to be able to do it. But realistically, for something, unless you're running Krennic, if you're running something like Tarkin, you want that 1-cost trooper that goes down, then you could put the token on it. And then you could play this on round 2, where you drop this and then put a token on, or experience token. But I don't know that that's necessarily going to be as valuable for the Scoutbike Pursuer. It's an interesting card, interesting design. We'll see a lot more of stuff like this. I just don't think that this passes the constructed muster. Next, courtesy of the Unlimited FFG Twitter account, we have a leader that I've been waiting to see for a while, ever since we saw the little image of the character. But it is our last Vigilance Villainy leader, and I think she is going to be very good and very fun to play. It is, in fact, Iden Versio, Inferno Squad Commander, Vigilance Villainy. Her ability is an action, Exhaust. If an enemy unit was defeated this phase, heal 1 damage from your base. She is an Imperial Trooper. Her epic action flips her at 6 or more resources into a 4/4. She is the rare Vigilance Villainy leader. She's number 2 out of 252 for SOR. And her leader unit side is a quote-unquote 6 cost, 4 power, 4 health, Imperial Trooper, shielded. When you deploy this leader, give her a shield token. When an enemy unit is defeated under any circumstance, heal 1 damage from your base. So Iden's strategy is to go along with the Vigilant strategy of things and defeat units. So, as we said before with the Avenger preview, Avenger does that. Count Dooku does that. Takedown does that. Vanquish does that. Just deleting units with damage does that. There are a lot of opportunities for leader side and leader unit side Iden Versio to be able to get those defeats, but there is a specific combo that I think is going to be widely used for players that are using Iden Versio, and I have built a deck for this that mixes her with command that allows you to target one of your units with overwhelming barrage and then just delete a ton of units. And I do have confirmation that this triggers each time an enemy unit is defeated, even if they're all defeated simultaneously. So if you can defeat multiple things in an attack, or something with like Fallen Lightsaber where a bunch of things get deleted, or the previous example of Overwhelming Barrage where you just do enough damage to knock off a bunch of units off the board, that will allow you to heal 1 damage from your base for each instance of a unit defeated at that time. So this is a very, very good effect. The only problem that's with Iden is that she is very easily removed from the board. As a 4/4, she doesn't threaten too much damage on her own. She is shielded, so she can protect from a big block of damage, but shields are very easy to remove. You either remove the upgrade or you plink her for 1 damage. The other thing is that she is not immune to takedown, because takedown specifically asks for a unit with 5 or less health. Iden Versio has 4. That is 5 or less. So that is her one weakness in my mind, is that the unit side is susceptible to a lot of different types of removal. Now the shield is going to help from the specific blast of damage, but if your opponent is holding a takedown, which you know every Vigilance deck is running takedown because it is one of the best pieces of removal in the game, you probably don't want to deploy this while you know your opponent has a takedown in their hand or the resources open to be able to do so. But I do think dropping Iden as a leader on a turn that you're prepared to play Overwhelming Barrage and be able to do that unimpeded on the next action you can take is going to be one of the strongest strategies for Iden Versio, at least in set 1. You can stick with the trooper strategy. I do have a deck that's built that does work with troopers in a specific way that also fits with the defeat strategy. So you could theoretically throw some extra experience tokens on her, or whatever other methods are able to buff up your troopers. You just gotta be careful. The item Versio is one of those leaders that it looks like it's not strong, but her abilities are going to make her very strong. But unlike Thrawn, where there's a very obvious strategy to how much information you're going to gain throughout the game, Iden is going to be a finesse leader, but does open up the avenue of using Vigilance Villainy, which might be one of the strongest deck types in the game. Our next previews come by way of Jenders Gaming over on YouTube. Again, link below as per usual. And we have two interesting aggression cards here to talk about. One's a unit and one's an event. So let's start with the unit. We have here the Spec Force Soldier, a 1-cost aggression heroism ground unit, 1 cost, 2 power, 2 health, rebel trooper. When played, a unit loses sentinel for this phase. It is a common. It is number 140 out of 252 in SOR, and this thing is busted in half. Now, a couple of things to take into consideration. The when played is a mandatory effect. You may not choose to not use it. So what that means is if your opponent doesn't have a sentinel and you do have a sentinel, much like Death Trooper, you have to target your own unit to lose sentinel. Just a quick clarification about the previous statement. Spec Force Soldier specifically requires you to target a unit, does not require you to target a unit with sentinel. You do want to do that, but if there's no sentinel unit and you don't want to target your own units, you can still target an opponent's unit, and that unit will lose sentinel for the phase even if it doesn't have it. This basically says, hey, that cell block guard doesn't have sentinel for this phase. Hey, that ship up in space doesn't have sentinel anymore. That thing that your gladiator gave sentinel for the phase, nah, son. This slots right into Sabine aggression. Just Sabine aggression. Like, you don't even need a base. You throw this into Sabine. You've got a 2/2 rebel trooper for 1, so you can play this on your first round or thereafter if you really need to use the effect, and still have a decent power health individual on the board. I keep wanting to say power toughness, but that's not what this game is. It's not the most broken thing in the game, obviously. There are other cards that are insanely better than this specific card, but a 2/2 for 1 that is a rebel, a trooper, and aggression. This procs so many different things in aggression strategies that it's going to slot in as a 3 of in literally every single aggression deck that can run heroism. It procs Fighters for Freedom. It procs the Partisan Insurgent. This is because it's a rebel. It works with Dodonna and Fleet Lieutenant. Because it's a trooper, it works with our next card, plus also other things that increase the power of troopers, or you can just throw experience tokens on it. Wing Leader gives this thing extra experience tokens, not that you necessarily need to do that, but it's great. Leia aggression, Luke aggression, Sabine whatever, 3 of in each one of those decks. Our next card is an event, which is very good. Not as bonkers as the last card, but still a very interesting piece of tech. We have here Precision Fire, a 1-cost aggression tactic event. Attack with a unit, it gains Saboteur for this attack. If it's a trooper, it also gains +2/+0 for the attack. It is a common, number 168 out of 252 in SOR. This art here is absolutely incredible and evokes the feeling of Battlefront games, basically all of them, but more explicitly the most recent ones. And I think this is a very good card that is aggression's shoot first, but is not as effective as shoot first. Shoot first is definitely the clear that unit off the board type tactic, whereas Precision Fire is a little bit more finesse based upon what you want it to do. Do you want to delete shields? Do you want to delete a troublesome unit off the board, bypassing Sentinel? Or do you just want to throw something at face? A 1-cost Saboteur, you're probably attacking with a unit with that Saboteur, but if you have a trooper, your 1-cost precision tactic is likely going to be shooting the base of your opponent. And I think that is an excellent reason to be able to use this card in decks. In terms of limited, this is a great card, even if you have to use it out of aspect, because it allows you to remove something off the board if you're attacking a unit. I think it's a great card. It definitely has great art. Our last preview of this week is another double aspect card. I did manage to catch it this week because they posted it on a Monday and not a Tuesday. This comes from the Unlimited FFG Twitter account, and it is a double command event. We have here Attack Pattern Delta. It is a 3-cost command tactic event. Give a friendly unit +3/+3 for this phase. Give another friendly unit +2/+2 for this phase. Give a third friendly unit +1/+1 for this phase. It is an uncommon. It is number 106 out of 252 in SOR. Attack Pattern Delta is a very fun card that allows you to reward a double command go wide strategy. So if you're running command Imperials, let's say, which does want to dump a bunch of troopers if you're playing like Tarkin and put the experience tokens on them. You have Taji that can also drop experience tokens on them. At the beginning of a round, you can play Attack Pattern Delta and fill out 3 of your units with extra power to be able to fling those units at your opponent's either opposing units or their base in order to be able to get some of the extra damage out with the pumps that you have here. Now, yes, all of these pumps are susceptible to removal, exhaustion, negation, all kinds of other different things that can stop something like this. But that does not mean this does not have value within the way that it's played. It means you just need to work around that. So be prepared for your opponent to target your biggest unit. Maybe don't use the biggest pump on the biggest unit. You could leverage and average out your board. Let's say you have a 1/1, a 2/2, and a 3/3. You can give the +3/+3 to your 1/1, the +1/+1 to your 3/3, and the 2/2 to your 2/2, meaning all of them are 4/4s for the moment, and your opponent has to pick, okay, this is all coming at me for 4 damage each. Which one is the biggest threat of the abilities that they have? If you know your opponent can't stop this, go ham. Just send everything you possibly can. Just make sure you got 3 units on the board. I think you could probably get away with only targeting 2 units with this, but you really do want to get all 3 units out there, much like Medal Ceremony, where you want to have the 3 full rebels to give those experience tokens. And remember, it's just units, so you can choose units in space, units in ground, or combination thereof. Attack Pattern Delta has this great art here, which we've seen before, of the snow speeders attacking the AT-ATs. There's a lot of open space for this if you choose to run double command for your deck. On December 6th, which was Wednesday, Fantasy Flight Games ran a live stream, FFG Live, talking about the designer insight for Star Wars Unlimited. I don't need these in my ears. Xander, Danny, Jeremy, Tyler on this stream. I did not watch this stream live because, as I said in the beginning, I had some stuff going on that I didn't want to deal with. I went over and grabbed as many of the important pieces of information from this video as possible. There's also a design insight article that goes with this video. So links to the video and the design article are down below. Xander, our host, asks, what card are you most proud of in the first set? Danny's answer is the Millennium Falcon. So many cool things that it can do for different decks. Tyler's answer is Thrawn. It achieves the goal of creating thematic gameplay of playing Thrawn, having more information than your opponent and unpredictable responses to those actions. And Jeremy's favorite card is I Am Your Father, because watching people experience the joy of that specific movie moment through the card was really fun to see, specifically speaking to PAX Unplugged, but I'm sure there are other things that were done during playtesting that also happened in that way. Xander asks, what's your role? Danny is the lead designer. He touches on everything. He looks at all sets and gives feedback here and there, but he's less focused on an individual set and more the overall picture of how each set fits into the others as we move forward towards having more sets in Star Wars Unlimited. Jeremy is a game designer, more on the developmental side, making sure that things are balanced, fun, and fair. He is the set 4 lead designer. Tyler's also a game designer. They collaborated all together for sets 1 through 3, but once they started splitting off to have their own individual responsibilities, Tyler was the point lead on the latter half of set 3. He's in charge of set 6. We know that one of the individuals from a previous stream is in charge of set 5, so that's all the sets in a row. Tyler is also in charge of art and gathering the direction of visuals for the game into a good spot. So as we move forward further into the line down to set 2 and set 3, the art direction will probably get more streamlined, more concise, and more consistent. What's the difference in designing for limited and multiplayer compared to just 1v1 constructed? This is a great question. Their answer was effectively the base construction of each set and the balance of costs, aspects, and card types at each rarity is how they're able to design the 1v1 constructed aspect, utilizing a little bit more into the rares and legendary slots, while things for limited and multiplayer are a little bit more limited to the common and uncommon slots. Not that there can't be things in other places, but specifically for limited, since most players are going to be seeing mostly commons and uncommons and rarely seeing impactful rares for their specific deck, decks. They want to make sure that all of that is balanced at those two specific rarities. One question specific was asked to Jeremy: are there people who are trying to break the game in playtesting, and have they specifically done it with Overwhelming Barrage? Jeremy's like, nope, and then laughed and then said, yes, Overwhelming Barrage has gone through changes, but it remains a powerful card, but we still haven't seen the whole set, and there's more to come. That is something that I've said pretty much every time, so I'm glad somebody else said it, and hopefully people will listen this time. Which leader has received the most significant reworks in design? Two people, Danny and Tyler, specifically said Han, but Tyler's secondary answer was also Thrawn. There's apparently leader abilities on both Han and Thrawn that might be seen later in the future, so that should be interesting. We had a chat question: what's the best starfighter and why is it the E-Wing? The answer was no, it's not the E-Wing. Xander's answer was the A-Wing because it's fast. And while not my favorite starship, I like that answer. Chat asked, what's the most underrated card or card combo? Danny and Jeremy both specifically stated that they don't really follow the community thought processes for what people think is good and what people bad. Basically, not saying that they disagree or agree with them, more that they just don't know what those are. But Danny had specifically said that he had heard that Takedown wasn't a great card. I don't know who said that. I don't think anybody has actually said that. But I'm not saying that Danny is wrong, because he flipped his option to Force Choke because it's a half-price Takedown. And that's a very interesting way to view Force Choke. I like Force Choke a lot. I think it's absolutely going to be in decks that are aggressive Villainy that utilize the Force aspect, so Vader and then also Grand Inquisitor, but who knows what else could come of that as we get further down the line. Force Choke and all of the Force cards are cards that are just going to get stronger as we get into other eras that have more Force users. Tyler's answer was Leader Chewie, and this is a very interesting batch of information he's given to us. He doesn't understand why people think Chewie is bad. He has the ability to protect himself with all of the 3 costs or less using his leader ability each round, and then when he flips, he's a 2/9 that is very difficult to peel off the board. And he specifically stated, okay, internet, if you haven't played against Leader Chewbacca after he's been deployed, you're not allowed to tell me he's bad. And I think this is a very, very bold statement. Jeremy didn't have an answer because he couldn't really think of it. Again, doesn't really follow the consensus or the discussion of the community. He's just doing his thing and working with the game, which I appreciate and respect, because sometimes the community, myself included, gets out of hand. This next question was very good. What is some advice for new players? And I agree with all of this. One of the things Danny specifically stated was attack with your units before playing other units, because your opponent could do something that disrupts your entire board plan. So at least get your basic attacks in before you start doing other things. This actually happens a lot in Magic the Gathering, where players will skip their first main phase, go to combat, and then do their stuff on their second main phase because they don't want their opponents to like board wipe them with an instant or do something that removes the ability to do things with things that they've already paid for. The next thing is cost curve is important. Another hugely helpful thing. Every game that has costs in it has a cost curve analysis, and you got to make sure you have your early games, your mid games, and your late games, but enough of your early games so that you can get to the mid and late game stuff, and not so much late game stuff that it clogs up your hand in the early game. Building a board presence is another thing. If you get your 1 unit down that can deal 5 damage a turn, cool, but if your opponent's all of a sudden throwing 8 units that deal 2 damage a piece at you, that's a problem. And then one thing that did come up that Tyler specifically stated was, in deck building, make sure you put space units in your deck, because if you get attacked with space and you can't do anything about it, you're gonna lose. And we've seen that on stream when Tyler resourced his Bright Hopes and one little Imperial Interceptor poked at Tyler 4 rounds in a row, basically losing him that game. Our next question was, what's your favorite aspect to design? And on top of that, is it different than your favorite aspect to play? Jeremy and Danny specifically said cunning for both of those answers, because cunning is really cool. I like cunning a lot. But they like their tricks. They like the extra things that's fun to play. Tyler was not allowed to answer this question. And the reason why is because apparently he has an interview coming out at some point in time, if it hasn't already come out, that specifically also answers this question. So for the future, what set 1 card made each of them laugh or at least be entertained the most? Tyler's answer was the subtitles for R2-D2 and 3PO. Danny's answer was You're My Only Hope, because watching people in playtesting build decks around trying to get You're My Only Hope, building it so that they can get a big chunk out at 5 health for free, or blindly using You're My Only Hope to flip the top card of the deck and it's just a 1 cost, that would be fairly entertaining. Maybe not necessarily for the person playing it, but the person on the other side of the board. And Jeremy's is Galactic Ambition, because what could that do someday? Tyler does interject here and say there's a card in set 1 that hasn't been previewed yet that will make Galactic Ambition cheaper, which is very interesting. Danny also pipes in and says that Force is the best trait in the game, which Force is really strong. I probably agree with that, since all of the cards that reference Force are really good, but I like Rebel. Did they have rotation in mind from the beginning of the game? The answer is yes. Do cards get rarity at the beginning of their creation or after development? The answer to this was actually surprising. It is immediate. They decide the rarity for specific things, so that way they can balance limited formats based upon commons and uncommons, and obviously rares and legendaries. And sometimes things will shift if they see a power level going up too high or a power level not going up high enough, and they can shift things around, or if the thematic component of the card fits a common or uncommon more than it does a rare, or vice versa, a rare more than it does a common or uncommon, they can shift those in that manner. But most of the cards are decided pretty much right when they come into somebody's mind. After this point, Danny asks, hey, can we show some cool cards? We were supposed to show cool cards. That's when we got the Avenger. Jeremy thinks the Avenger is awesome. Next, we have a batch of questions here that were the last questions of this specific stream. Why a 50 card deck and why so brutal a mulligan roll? I don't really think that the mulligan rule is that brutal. A brutal mulligan rule would be no mulligan at all. For a 50 card deck and 3 copies of each card is for consistency. With the way the game works, you can pretty much shuffle out or fish out anything you need to be able to win the game based upon having that, and anything less than that puts you into a position of, if you draw 2 cards, then your deck's going to thin out very quickly, especially with the way that you do resources, and some things will draw cards and some things will resource things, so on and so forth. In terms of the mulligan, players have a large amount of control of filtering their decks with drawing 2 cards and other things, so limiting the mulligan to 1 complete redraw is the balancing component for that. One question here, which I actually understand why this was asked, but it's not really the game to ask it for. What have you tried to do to recreate lightsaber clashes in TCG content? And Tyler's answer is actually pretty good. It's reciprocal damage. 2 units fighting each other, boom. There you go. They deal damage to each other. If they've got sabers in their hands, then it's even better. The last question here is assign aspects for each developer. Tyler's was command and Jeremy's was cunning, but Jeremy specifically said villainy, and they all appreciated that. I appreciate that too. Danny's is aggression because he only wants to play 1-drops. Because why on round 1 would you only want to play 1 card when you can play 2 cards? And you know, he's not wrong. And then Xander gets Vigilance because he has to make sure that the devs are on track and there's no unintentional spoilers. And that was the stream. It was interesting. It was kind of hectic and chaotic. We did get 2 previews out of it, which was awesome. And we'll see what their deck building stream has after this video, in fact. And that is all she wrote for this week. Long video. I managed to edit it down a little bit so that way it doesn't take too long. So hopefully you all enjoyed the content I have been able to bring to you as much as I did making the content video for you. I don't know. It's content creator is a weird term nowadays. Lots of cool previews. Lots of interesting information from the FFG stream. After today's video, there's another stream where the developers talk about deck building, and I believe they said they might get a game in. I'm not entirely sure. So that insight will also be interesting to add on to this past week's insight and previews. If it ends up that there's not enough content over the holiday period, I will end up posting a deck tech video for decks that I've come up with. We'll probably do like 1 or 2 decks per specific video per week. That way there's at least still something going out while all of you enjoy your holidays, whatever that may be. Like and comment on the video, subscribe to the channel. If there's anything you guys want to see, specifically my take on a leader or a combination, I would love to be able to address some of that. I do have some scheduled games coming up here soon that I'll be playing against other people, and then doing more Force Table stuff, because that's actually pretty fun and weirdly addictive. Thank you for joining me, everybody. I appreciate each and every one of you. We'll see you in the live stream. We'll see you next week for another video. And with that, I will see you in the stars.